Hi guys, in this video I'll talk about different types of narrator and narration point of view. So it's very important to know this in order to understand any novel or story, and even for any competitive exam or even for pub grade. So it's very important to know this because one or two questions may be asked from this aspect. So let's get started. Narrative perspective of narration point of view is the perspective from which the writer tells the story. Okay, so it's the narrator's perspective of events that are window into the story to the reader. So there are basically three different types of narration point of view: the first person, second person, the third person. Now the first person narrator often refers to himself or herself, and the lines include I, me, my, mine. Okay, so as a reader in first person point of view, we are only limited by the first person point of view or the first person narrator. The protagonist often happens to be the first person narrator in that particular story or novel. Okay, he or she may not having all the information about the events, so you would not be able to know what the other person is thinking in first person point of view. In first person point of view, basically the first person narrator is understood in a full-fledged manner. Okay, so you cannot get to know about the other information or other person's point of view. Okay, so if you read The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald or any autobiographical writing, you will find that this novel reads as, in my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I have been turning over in my mind ever since. So here you see that I, my, it is in the first person point of view. Okay, so now moving forward, second person narrator is when the reader is directly addressed with you, your, yours, etc. Okay, now this type of narration is rarely used in literature because the narrator uses you to refer to the reader as if the reader is a character in the story. So it sounds kind of awkward that the narrator is directly addressing you, saying that because of this it happened, or you did this, you did that. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so this type of narration is not used in most of the cases. Next, third person narrator. So this is commonly used, and here the narrator doesn't refer to himself or herself in the first person and not addressing the reader in the second person as well. So here instead we get an observer's perspective. Okay, here we can know about the other person's thinking or about the whole incident or events that's going on in the story or in the novel. Okay, similarly we have the omniscient narrator. So the in some cases you will see the third person omniscient narrator. So omniscient means all knowing. Okay, so here the narrator is seeing everything from God's eye. We say the God is omniscient because God is knowing everything happening in the world at the same time. He is present everywhere. Okay, so here the character, the narrator seems to be knowing everything, and he can tell everybody's thoughts and feelings in the story. Okay, the narrator has kind of psychic power. He can actually dive into the thoughts and feelings of every character that appears in the novel story. The best thing about the omniscient narrator is that he is able to be everywhere at once. Whatever is going on in the story, if there is a person who is trying to hide something, or if there is another person who is trying to find that, so we can know that. Whereas in the first person narration, we can only know what the protagonist, the first person narrator, is sharing with us. Okay, the limited narrator is the first person narrator. Okay, in some cases that the omniscient narrator has been a limited narrator because of his limited knowledge, but limited narrator cannot be third person narrator. Okay, now moving forward, unreliable narrator. An unreliable narrator is who may or may not be telling the truths to the reader about the whole story. Okay, because the narrator, he or she is having some problem with his mental ability or with his maturity. Okay, he or she may be over exaggerating something or stretching the truth or hiding the truth. Okay, so the unreliable narrator often tend to be biased. He tells from subjective point of view. Okay, subjective means your knowledge or your experiences are going to affect your judgment. He or she cannot be trusted fully. Okay, so we cannot trust any events that that's being narrated by an unreliable narrator. if you see the movie Forrest Gump, so we found through his mother's experience with the local principal at the school that Forrest Gump is lower than average people, so it means that he has a below average IQ. His mental disability along with his seemingly impossible stories, it suggests that Forrest Gump is an unreliable narrator. Okay, so because of all this, it limits his ability to tell the story accurately. Now the objective narrator is totally opposite to the unreliable narrator. He objectively describes everything like a news reporter. Okay, so he is not going to be biased towards anything, or he is not going to favor anybody or comment on who did right or who did wrong. Okay, so the reader is left to choose or interpret those events or what's going on in this character's head. Okay,